you. And what you tell me, I send people to you now. It's like in my mind, I'm like, oh, you want to do it this way? Just go see Robbie.
Maybe I should do a podcast.
Yeah. We can help you with that.
Yeah, Robbie, do you want to be our third?
Yeah.
See how the show just grows, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, our first guest right here is Robbie Melton. She is one of the greatest aunties of business.
Yeah.
And she's a whole lot of wealth and knowledge. She's part of the SBDC and the current president of the Lahui Business Association.
That's right.
What else are you part of as of right now?
So I'm also on the Kauai Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors.
Okay.
And so I think that's pretty much enough.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of things going
Yeah.
on.
There's a lot too.
The big
yes.
three. That's the big
Yeah.
three right there.
It is the big three. So Robbie, can we, for those who don't know who you are, can we go a little more of who is Robbie and why is she someone that can speak about this type of topic?
Well, I want to say that my family is from Hilo.
Okay.
My grandfather was born there. My other grandfather came from China and ended up in Hawaii on his way back.
Wow.
He worked at the, the railroads
Okay.
in California.
Okay.
So he was a scholar.
Oh, wow.
And he actually took money from the workers and wrote letters to the families and took the money back to China.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of my history in Hawaii. So I have deep roots here.
Okay.
But my dad did like every college student, went away and went to school on the mainland, and I got stuck growing up in Iowa.
Oh, okay.
But you know, God is good, and I got involved in working with businesses because I always wanted to help grow science and technology. So I actually was a seed investor for a technology company in Maryland.
Oh, wow.
I probably have read over 2,000 business plans in my life. And so I help people write business plans. I teach them how to present to investors. That's my sweet spot. Doing financial projections, the whole bit. And then during that time, too, women were just very much discriminated against in the venture capital world. So that's how we started our company, Women in Bio.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And what year was that?
That was in 2001.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I didn't know that much about you, and I've known you for years. So I appreciate that intro. It gave me some great insight to you and how you got started.
Yeah, that kind of just opened my mind too, because I actually am interested in the future maybe of doing my own startup, and you share a lot of knowledge to the business community here, which I find very, very helpful and amazing too. What led you to start learning about business or getting into business?
So actually, I really started out, I have a master's degree in what's called Science, Technology, and Public Policy. So I love doing administration of research projects. And so that kind of grew into then working with science and technology companies and businesses, and then I got into the investment world, and it just kind of bloomed from there.
Wow.
Yeah, that's definitely I've never met someone, because I'm originally from the East Coast, and I don't know that many people that go straight into like the investment world, and I don't know if there's a lot of people that understand about anything like that too. Can you tell a little more about what that is?
Yeah, so I didn't go straight into the investment world. It was like serendipity. So I first was at a university helping university faculty connect to tech companies. That's how I started. And then the next thing just kind of led into helping the state invest into technology companies.
Okay.
So, the great thing in Hawaii, though, is the investment community is growing. So when I moved back in 2014, things were starting to take off. Like Blue Startups was here, Accelerate Hawaii was here. There are a few other accelerator programs with investment, but now there's actually real investors here.
Right.
You know, venture firms. Well, there's always been an angel firm here, but to have venture capital here is really good.
All right. Well, so is there anything out there that you can guide the listeners to help them when they are looking for investment for their operations or their startups, with some do's and some don'ts? Or
Yeah, so I hate to say this, but only 3% of companies are venture capital investable.
Oh, 3%. Okay.
Only
Oh, my
3%.
goodness.
So a lot of people come and like, oh, I want to get an investor in my firm, but there's so many criteria.
Right.
Like you have to have a large market, like $100 million market.
Right.
So a lot of people here in Hawaii aren't thinking that big. There are companies that are investable, but you really need to have a product or a service, software.
That's why tech is so
really
big.
going to be,
right?
yeah.
Right, and tech's only going to get a lot bigger too.
Constantly.
Especially, I think, in Hawaii as well, because I can really see Hawaii flourishing to be very technologically savvy, especially with, you know, other, like you said, there's venture capitalists that are end up coming here now, and there's more firms that are able to support startups. I think the biggest divide is just understanding how hard it is to really know what requirements are there. It's like, can you share something with us of what does it take to become, like, have a successful startup that you could eventually get a funding for?
So one, like I mentioned, you have to have a large market. So somebody who comes in who is just going to sell on Kauai or sell in Hawaii is probably not going to be investable. Maybe angel investable, but not. The other really key thing is, are you flexible and are you open as an entrepreneur? Because if you just want to do it my way or the highway, you are not ever going to get any money. Because I've met people like, I'm just walking away.
Right.
You know, because...
No, I've stumbled upon that when I first started my business that I talked about like almost 15, 20 years ago. And I was like, no, it's going to work this way. And I didn't do any research about how to do it the right way or like the ups and downs of how it should be done. And I literally just ended up failing fast because of that. And it's okay. I learned from it. I don't think that anything at this point is a failure. It's a learning experience, right?
Right. Well, I think that's true. So like on the East Coast, everybody fail fast, pick yourself up and go on. But in Asian cultures, when you fail, that's like the end of the world.
Yeah.
And so having to train people's attitudes and mindset to be, okay, it's okay to fail.
Right.
Then you just pick up and you learn from your mistakes and move on.
It's funny that you say that because I can see that at least with my, not only my family, but with a lot of families that I've become friends with. We have kind of this stigma to make sure that we're always succeeding, but when it comes to failure, we kind of take a hard toll on ourselves in some cases. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, that to be more successful, you have to fail a lot.
That's very true. Yeah, you have to go over and over again. When we started Women in Bio, we knew the day we started we wanted to be a national organization. So Women in Bio is a nonprofit organization. And, you know, we had to really be flexible in that. And so we were always reiterating what we did. So we first started out just wanting to help women who were starting biotech companies how to be successful. But then all of a sudden we got this rush of demand from other women who were in biotech but weren't entrepreneurs. And they're like, well, we need an organization too. So then we said, oh, geez. So we expanded Women in Bio to be a professional development organization and a training ground for entrepreneurs. And then again, we had to expand again when somebody said, we need to teach young girls to be in careers in biotech.
Okay.
Right. Right.
And for those who are just tuning in, we're talking here with Robbie, and she's giving us the backstory of what got her interested in business, and as well as helping those who were disenfranchised back then, which were women in tech. And yeah, is there anything out there for women or anybody that's disenfranchised now that's like help or grants or things like that?
So there aren't grants. However, Central Pacific Bank now has a program for women entrepreneurs. So they have a cohort coming up. And so they train you to strengthen you, to teach you all the things you need to know. There's also Found Her, which is for Native Hawaiian women.
Okay.
It's run out of Purple Maya, which is an organization to help Native Hawaiians grow in the business sector.
Wow. Okay.
There's also Mana Up, which is an organization for people who have consumer products.
Okay.
And they teach not only women but men to how to become $1 million company. So there are a lot here, but there are no such thing as grants.
Okay.
So let's just put that
Roger
out
that.
there.
Okay. I've always heard that, people always talking about that there's grants for this and grants for that. So I just thought I would ask, but I'm glad you reiterated that.
So there are grants, okay, but you have to remember there's one grant and 500,000 people
Right.
that want that one grant.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know actually if do people know about these availabilities, like opportunities of starting up a business or starting up a startup in Hawaii, especially Kauai itself? It feels like, to me, since I've started, there's been a small divide on getting this information out there to everybody. What do you think about the opportunities that like people are kind of not seeing?
Yeah, I think part of it goes to like SBDC. We ourselves are at fault at that because we don't have a major marketing campaign. We just hired somebody to help us get our name out because so many people don't hear about us. Right. Most of ours is word of mouth. We are a program of the Small Business Administration. So if you were to go to their website, they would send you to us.
Okay.
Right.
So that's kind of our marketing. And the chamber, of course, also helps.
And I definitely know that there's a lot of ambitious people in Kauai, and I've seen it with the craft fairs, the art walk events that's around here.
Yep.
But I haven't seen that many people that start, like, say, an online service business as much as I think I would love to see,
So,
I got something after you because I go ahead. I want to see what you're going to say about this.
Most of those people that are doing software and online things, you don't see them on the street. We have lots of them here.
That's true.
And
That's
they're
true.
all remote workers, have their own companies. Yep. So they're not on the streets peddling, going, hey, I'm here. But we did this event with Facebook for Business about 5 years ago.
Okay.
We had 500 people register. About 350 were from Kauai.
Oh, wow.
And they all showed up. And I'm like, where did all these people come from? Because they're all just working from home.
Right. So what I was going to add is to hit your point was the fact that I think a lot of people are scared of incorporating their business fully because of taxes and liabilities and not fully understanding what it takes to be in good standings with the IRS because it's a little scary and it's really expensive to operate a business in Hawaii. But there's ways to get around that if you have the right information. Not around it, but like knowing how to
watch your mouth.
Right? Yeah. This is not legal advice. I am not a tax professional, but there's ways to incorporate your expenses the proper way to then grow your business and then not have to worry about having such a big tax liability.
So we actually have an event coming up May 2nd.
Okay.
It's on QuickBooks, financials, and tax deductions.
That's beautiful.
And so it teaches you what are the things that you can do tax deductions, so it reduces your tax liability.
Right.
Right.
So that's a really important event for people to go to.
And I also saw that you guys have another event with one of my friends, Gary.
Oh, yeah.
About business operations, right? So it's going to be. I'll be tuning in to
Oh,
listen
good.
to
Yeah,
everything.
so that's this Friday.
Yeah.
And that's a webinar.
Oh, it's a webinar.
Yeah, it's
okay.
a webinar. So people should join in because he's got a wealth of information. He said there are like 6 key components that really help solidify your business and will help you really become sustainable.
And I think, it's really important to talk about structure when it comes to business. And I'm sure that you've seen your fair share of people succeeding and failing. What were some of the things that were pretty common for people to fail at?
I think the first thing that people fail at is not planning. So people like begrudge having to do either a business plan or any like financial projections. And so I've seen people who had decent businesses, but because they only think about opening the door.
Yeah.
They don't think about a year from now or 3 years from now. So they crash and burn within the year.
Right.
That's just automatic. But if you spend your time really strategizing what your business is going to look like in the future and how to get there, you're more likely to succeed.
I see.
love it.
Good.
I guess I could say why it's important to file your GE tax and to be registered to do business in the state. Because when the pandemic hit, people are trying to get SBA money, but there was no record of them even being in business.
Yeah.
They weren't paying any taxes
Right.
or anything. And so that's one of the really key reasons that there are so many other things that you can avail yourself of.
Right.
Yeah, that
Eh,
makes sense.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying that makes sense. I was a victim of that, not filing my taxes properly because I hired a CPA to do it all for me, and they weren't filing it for me at all. And yeah, I was when I tried to buy my house, that's when I found out they weren't getting filed because the lender was like, "Oh, I need your tax returns," and I was like, "Okay." And I sent them the 1040s that was prepared, but they were never sent to the IRS.
Oh, wow.
No.
I had to deal with all of that and catch up and stuff, and yeah, it wasn't fun. But
Oh man, that must have been a pain to deal with.
yeah, calling IRS is not an easy thing. It's a lot of waiting around.
Exactly. So that brings up another point, though. You can't just hire any CPA for your business. So you need to interview them, say, what businesses have you worked with? Because some CPAs only do personal taxes, and they don't know all the rules and regulations. It needs to be somebody in Hawaii that knows the Hawaii laws. So I've had people, I talked to a couple, and they'd been in business a long time, and they made high-end jewelry and high-end Cowood pens and things like that. And their CPA never deducted certain business expenses.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, you can deduct that?" I'm like, "Yes, you can deduct that." So they were losing money
Right.
because the CPA never, like, sometimes I just tell people you need a different CPA.
Sometimes you do, and those are lessons learned in business.
But how can you really find who's the best CPA to work with for your needs?
So one, you need to interview them. So to find out, do you work with this industry or this kind of business? 2, some referrals would help, so you can check out other people's referrals. 3, if you don't get your financial records every month, then you know it's time to switch.
Oh wow, I didn't
CPAs.
even know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had one client, had a great business. They hired somebody to do their books. They never saw any financial records.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and that's not good because you need to know what's going on
Yeah,
in
if
your
you're in the black
business.
or you're in the red, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, it's like kind of a fault to the business owner too for not knowing much about how to handle finances when it comes to starting a business too, because like you already say if you're a one-man team, you're already juggling so many things that is not the ordinary thing that everyone usually does.
Yeah, you can't wear all the hats, right?
Right. So it's already hard enough, but How do you go from a transition like that of, say, juggling so many things, being able to focus on your finances, and just the day-to-day tasks?
So there are people out there that are called business assistants or professional assistants, and you can hire them part-time. So like even a bookkeeper, you only hire them part-time. So it's worth the money to hire some, especially if you're not a numbers person. So you need somebody to do that, but you need to be able to look at your records every month to see where you are financially. Because when I was an investor and I walked up to you, how many sales did you make in the last month? If you couldn't tell me, I would just walk away.
Right.
That makes
Because
sense.
you need to be on top of your business.
Right.
And I think it's hard too. I'd say probably say doing it by yourself versus doing it with a team. You can really duplicate the effort, or maybe even make it even larger of how many people you have in the team. But it's also balancing between the people that work with you to make sure, like, say, hey, this person's in charge of my finance or finances for our business, and he knows our things for us. But everyone needs to know what's going on at all times.
Yeah, exactly. So when we started Women in Bio, there were 4 founders. And because we're a nonprofit, we needed to have a board. So we had a board of 8 people. And then we had volunteers work in all our different committees to help us. Program committee, a sponsorship committee, communications committee, finance committee, and all of that. So we had like 70 volunteers
Oh, wow.
when we were starting. I think it's just because women were desperate for what we were doing. But in the end, like you said, people need to know at all times what's going on. We ended up firing 2 of the founders.
Oh, wow.
And that was hard, you know.
That brings me to my next question is, like, when building the team like he was talking about, how do you make sure that the people that are on your team are in the right positions and in the right places? I mean, I know you got to vet them and like interview them to make sure, but how do you ensure that the people that are in the places that you put them for are
Well, you
going to be
need
good
to
at what they're
vet
doing?
them. You need to talk to other people, find out who they are. Usually when you're just starting out, it's other people you know.
Right.
But you don't want it to be your family, because then it gets ugly when they're family members. A funny story is this couple, they started this sensor business. And then they got venture capital money.
Okay.
Well, he was the scientist, she was the business person. They wanted to kick him out
Oh, no.
because he was not a businessman and he was sort of dragging the company down.
Right.
But they wanted to keep her,
Wow.
so what do you do?
That's like Apple, right? Or Apple, was it Apple? Who was it? Tom, what was the guy that made the Apple phone, iPhone?
Steve?
Steve
Steve
Jobs,
Jobs, yeah.
Okay, damn. Well, I've had a story like that before. Not as significant because we started a company, my food truck, and it's called The Village. You've guys been there and ate there, but we started it with the thought of like having all the family being a part of it and everybody doing it like that and building like generational wealth and all of this. And you realize really quickly that sometimes you might bump heads, right? And then who's in charge, or then you have to be respectful of your elders and this and that. And then sometimes like you can't be in a position as a CEO and trying to talk to someone that's your elder and telling them what to do. It might come off a little bit wrong or rude if you're in the mix of things. So I'm glad you said that. You have to be wary if you're going to go into business with family. Not saying that you shouldn't, but be wary of it because there will be times where you're tested emotionally.
Right, especially like since like say it's your family members that are working with you that you don't know what they are good at, or say like because they're family, you guys are just close, you guys are blood, and sometimes not. But at the same time, it's more or less like you don't want to hurt that other person's feelings because I've seen it before where people get into business together that are family members that they end up not talking to each other anymore because of that situation.
Exactly. That's why I'm even against partnerships. So many people, I'm going to partner up with someone. I'm like, nope, don't do it. Because even if you have the roles outlined, so I have one client, 2 really good friends went into business. They both had this vision for their company. But as the company grew, one of them wanted to go in this direction, and the other person wanted to stay true to their original mission. So it ended up being ugly, and the other person ended up buying the other one out
Okay.
to run the business. And they also didn't have a partnership agreement. That because in
Contracts.
a partnership agreement, you
Right.
need that contract that says, okay, if you decide to split, this is how we're going to split the company.
Okay.
Right, exactly. I think it's very important to really know to who you end up working with if you decide to go into partnership with someone, because
100%.
like knowing them, just like their skills and everything, like it might be all good, and like you guys could really complement each other, but if you don't really know what the foundation is for what you guys are doing together in the first place, it could really fall apart.
Yeah, I think you
100%.
need the vision. So in our Women in Bio, this woman and I were in a meeting. We were the only women in all these, biotech meetings. We're like, where are the other women? Because we know there are 10,000 women in the biotech field. So that was our driving force. And then she brought on, not me, but she brought on these two other people. And I'm like, what's this? But one was an entrepreneur in a startup biotech company, and the other one was a finance person. But they didn't have the same vision we had. And that's the whole thing. You have to have the same vision and the same drive.
I'm glad you said that because it leads me to this last question that I have, and then I'll give you the rest of the questions. Is what is the rest of your vision for Women in Bio and the future plans for Women in Bio? Like,
Yeah, so when we started, we wanted to be national, right? But we didn't know what that looked like. But we did our business plan, and we said, okay, the first 5 years, we're only going to be in the DC area because we need to figure out what our programming is, who we're serving, how we're marketing. Because if we went out the next day and started up one in Florida, it would just be a mess because we didn't have our foundation built.
okay.
So when we had in our business plan how we were going to expand nationally, right? So first one was RTP, Raleigh. Second one was Chicago. But as we were expanding into these new chapters,
Oh, sorry.
what?
I said Chi-Town.
Yeah.
I'm from Chicago.
We realized, the way we had planned to expand nationally didn't quite work. So then we rewrote the business plan, and now we have 14 chapters.
Oh, wow.
They have now 8 paid full-time employees.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's still going. We celebrated our 20 years.
That's a great story and a great adaptation and innovation in the company to make those pivots.
How does one get that far into business? Say, I know that when you first start a business, you hear about this statistic. I don't know what the true statistic is, but everyone says 90% of businesses fail, especially within the first couple of years. How do you get to that point of having something so successful that it kind of lets it run on its own?
It never runs on its own. Oh, come on, let's be real.
Right, that's true.
So one is a solid foundation business plan. So we didn't just write the business plan. Every year we looked at the business plan and said, are we meeting our objectives in our business plan, or do we need to change it? And sometimes we needed to change it. The other thing that's kept us going is so many women needed our organization.
I see.
Because it helped them professionally, it helped them start companies. I've seen people come up and say it's changed their lives.
Wow.
And so even now, 20 years later, when I go to a convention and I meet these women like, oh, we're so glad you started Women in Bio, because they really need support. So even women have made great strides. Still in the biotech field, there's still a lot of...
I'm pretty sure that not just the women that you have helped are going to be appreciative of this, but the women in the future who you're going to help as well. And so I really, really do appreciate you doing all of that. And I hope that we together in the show that we're doing have that same type of impact on the world and help those out there.
I think you will. I do want to say when Women in Bio started, we got no money.
Okay.
So one of the ladies on the board, she worked for a law firm, and they provided seed money to us when we started. But when we're out trying to get, corporate sponsorships, nobody would give us money, and it would took like the second year, because they loved the idea. They loved, oh, women are getting together, and you're helping them. But it wasn't until the second or third year when they're like, oh, they're really helping them, and they're really making a difference. So
Okay.
then people started donating money to us. So you have to be quality. That's the other thing. So in 2009, when the bubble burst and nobody was investing in anything, we were the only organization to get funding.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
that's amazing.
It was really,
Wow.
the law firms were giving us money. Other organizations gave us money.
Okay. Well, she laid out the blueprint, y'all.
Yeah.
you gotta follow those footsteps, man. She paved the way for the future. For
Right,
sure.
and if you are listening, that was a lot to process too. Robbie is a very very knowledgeable person, especially of what she does here. The background that she has in business is very crucial to a lot of startups and Kauai, especially like the small businesses around the area.
Yep.
How has things been going as of currently for you?
So the SBDC on Kauai is so busy. We need to have more people hired to help. And I think, people always say Kauai's small and Kauai's country, but we have a lot of manufacturing companies here. Yeah, and I keep trying to impress upon that it's not just tourism. And if we could provide funding to help these manufacturers get started and going, then we could have an alternative workforce
Right.
to do something, or to get more of the remote work
Right.
here.
I think it's more or less expanding on the type of industries that Kauai has have to offer for everyone. Especially if we had more manufacturers that know the way or how to maybe automate some processes or have a better, well thought out system for them to build their products, would be a lot easier for us to do more exporting, especially in say the clothing or crafting businesses.
Yeah, I think the issue isn't automation. The issue is space.
Okay.
So I have some very large manufacturing companies that I work with now,
Yeah.
but the issue is they need to expand because the demand is great, but there's no space. So that's one of the big issues, is where do you find space to do
I see.
the kind of work you need to do.
So they're already at that point where they're able to expand, but they necessarily can't.
Because of
Find
the
the place.
space.
I see.
I feel like that's where the community has to come in, and we help and we use construction companies that need help to then help with the manufacturing companies, and then the workforce that's needed for people who needs jobs to come in, and then we all work in tandem together, and that's how you get things done. And hopefully that's going to be what we do, is bridge the gap between businesses and employees, businesses that need employees that need work, and hopefully we can get this island in the
Right.
unison.
And the whole point of our conversations too, Robbie, is to get people to be aware of what's going on in the business community. It's not just being able to share everyone's experience, and I think everyone has a lot to learn from you, especially.
100%.
That we can all learn something from each other and also understand like what our current challenges are, because I know we have some main ones that we talk about all the time. There's not enough. The wages here are definitely crucial for people living in this island, and on top of that, finding ways for people to stay here is another problem. What I've seen, at least for myself, is I haven't seen. I've seen a few, but I don't see that many business owners that are kind of more in my generation at the moment. I'd love to see more diversity, and I've seen some which have been very very helpful, and you've introduced me to one of them. But I'd love to see like what is my generation can shine from, especially if they don't know where to start, if they lived in this island for so long.
Yeah, I think again, how I say, there are a lot of people that are hidden.
Right.
So there are a lot of entrepreneurs that are your age.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it's not really spoken about or
Right.
or showcased. But I think one of the advantages of being on Kauai is that we are community driven. And so it's not like, the big corporation is trying to get the little guy here. It's everybody knows everybody.
Right.
And so like even where I live, some of my clients actually live in my neighborhood. So
Right.
but
Right.
we're all trying to help each other,
Yeah.
which is the good thing. And I think that's what sets our island apart from other islands.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen this too, is that Ross from Chicago, I'm from the East Coast, mainly New Jersey and Connecticut, and Christian too is from Iowa, I think.
Uh-huh.
Right? So it's like we have a bunch of people that have come from different parts of the U.S.
Right.
on our little tiny island that we have, but we have so many diversity of information that we can share with each other. Not all of us are stick to one culture, but we all try to learn and as much as adapt with each other.
So
Yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
What I think is needed is because I come from, when I joined the Air Force, right, the military gave me the workforce of how to work hard and work efficiently and effectively and all of that. But I wasn't taught how to focus my energy. And that's why I started my company. And to focus my energy on getting a task done that's needed, that is then effective into the community, to the world. Like, I need to be doing something that's going to help more people versus just helping me get money. And a lot of people in this world, when we're struggling, is we're only focused on how to get money. I need money. And we're not thinking about how can I affect those around me so that then money comes, but then I can help these other people attain money and security and housing. And so I think what we are doing is going to help people understand how I can help you and how you can help him, and we create that
Right.
trifecta or times 10 times 100 and stuff like that.
And I love that you brought that up because that's kind of why I also started my business. I mentioned this very briefly in our previous episode, but I started it because I really saw in myself to be part of this community. And there's nothing like this community that has brought out kind of the best in me to be able to share and give the experience that I have to be able to make a brighter future for us. And one of the biggest things is because I've seen that so many people here have given so much to me. And I love like how we put ourselves first together
Yep.
instead of putting each other one at a time.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I think for you, you spend so much time volunteering.
Yeah.
And everybody recognize how you've given to the community and been a part of the community. Even though you're new,
Right.
a lot of people know you
Yep.
just because you've given so much of yourself.
I think that was the reason why before I even started, right when I was like a little seedling of when I first started, even before then, I knew that I wanted to give back to the people here. Because when I even worked my old job, I was still kind of grateful for anywhere that I went and the conversations I've had with, some of the store owners or just the everyday, day-to-day people. I loved it here because they were giving me the kind of the appreciation that I felt very connected with.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah, when I first moved here, I wouldn't have made it if I didn't have people allow me to rent a room in their house and introduce me to their family and open their doors and feed me, and then it made me more comfortable to get out there and then do the same and meet more people and help other people. And so it's like you said, it's community. It's a community driven place, and like I love it here. That's why I want to make sure that I give back as much as I can. Any knowledge that I know, and I'm going to continue that down, going, that's my son is going to know, my son's son is going to know, and hopefully I can pass the torch,
I think this goes back to though, like more or less what you're saying with the marketing for SPDC, but I think we all have to share what we know, right? So like that's at least part of what I'm doing for Talking Growth as well, is like I wanted to give everyone the kind of the influence or be able to start or encourage them to look at starting a business, because to me, at least, I felt more achieving in my own way for when I've started versus having to work for someone.
I agree because mine was the same way, and the way I was giving away my free value was my podcast. So I would literally just post it, and for free, you could just listen to it on Spotify and Apple. And I would get clients that way because they were like, "Oh, you talked about this. Can I get a little more information?" And nowadays, I'm not even charging for the information that showing you. And what you tell me, I send people to you now. It's like in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, you want to do it this way? Just go see Robbie."
Maybe I should do a podcast.
Yeah. We can help you with that.
Yeah, Robbie, do you want to be our third?
Yeah.
See how the show just grows, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we hope to be able to reach the entire community, not just someone who's young that wants to start a business. We want to be able to reach anyone that has maybe started in the past or maybe have never started to begin with, to go ahead and try it again, especially learning from our failures. What failures have you had before in your business?
In my business,
Yeah.
I think when I was the co-founder, and then I was president and chairman of the board for 7 years.
Okay.
And back then, again, remember, we didn't have any money, so I worked a full-time job and ran the organization.
Wow.
So I was getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night for
no.
7 years.
Oh my God.
That's just to keep it, yeah.
Oh,
So it's
no.
funny, at 2 a.m. I'm emailing somebody and they'd email back like, "What are you doing up?" Well, I'm worried about this or worried about that. But so I developed a succession plan so that I could remove myself from leadership
Okay.
and still be involved. So we created a succession plan, but our biggest failure was not vetting the people who were succeeding.
I see.
And so we had a couple of people that were really bad apples
That came after you.
that came after me.
Nah.
Not initially,
No, yeah, okay.
but down the road. So to me, that was one of the failures, is not, vetting those that were going to succeed and putting in the right sort of rules or policies in place to do that.
This actually falls back to a question that I had earlier before I completely forgot about it, but how do you really define your vetting process? Like what does it entail? Like what do you have to look at before you say you can start vetting someone?
So a lot of it depends on what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're vetting somebody to come and work with you, you always want to have people on your team that do something different from you. Because if you hire somebody or get somebody to work with you that has the same skill sets as you, then you're going to be competing and butting heads.
Right.
But you need somebody else that's really good with something. Like my other co-founder, she was a lawyer. So
Okay.
she was really good with all the legal aspects of growing the company, where I'm the more mouthy person. So I'm the more personality type, going out, raising money, and just drawing people into the organization.
Right.
So understanding what are the roles you need to fill,
Okay.
and then just not picking anybody.
All right. Do you ever suggest any SOPs, like standard operating procedures for businesses? And
Of course.
okay.
That's the most important part of
Right.
your business.
Right. That's what
Every business
right.
needs that. So when I used to be an investor, like I would read these business plans, and the most important part of their business are SOPs
Yeah.
and how they're going to operate, how they're going to manufacture, or how they're going to do anything. And that's the thing missing out of the business plan. And I'm like, well, how do I know how you're going to be successful
Right.
if I don't see that?
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad. That's why I brought it up, because that was one of the things I was lacking in when I failed, was the standard operating procedures and like figuring out, okay, what's the cycle of things that I'm going to be doing on a regular basis to make sure that I'm profitable. And I didn't have it, and I wasn't profitable. So that's why I asked you that.
Well, going back to profit too, the other thing, like I'm working with a client now, and she realized that she was underselling her product and she wasn't making any money. And so I said, well, first you need to figure out how much money you need to make. So what do you need to live on? What do you need for your family, especially if you have a family? And then work backwards. So then you know I need to sell this much or I need to serve this many hours or whatever. So you know that you can meet that
Yeah,
standard of living.
that's smart. That's smart.
So for people that that have never started a business before, what is a standard of operating procedure? What is an SOP?
It depends on the business.
Yeah.
There is no blue book for every single business.
Right.
Okay.
Each kind of industry is so different.
So, for instance, to give you just an example, right? Let's just take a radio station. Okay, an SOP would be coming in, turning the alarm off, turning on the lights, checking the mics, checking the headphones, making sure the TVs are on, the AC's on or off, whatever. And then the same thing with closing up. Turn off all the computers, turn off all the ACs, turn off all the lights. It's like a checklist.
Oh, okay. So I think for me, I guess I
You
never really
you naturally do it though.
Yeah.
I guess I never really put it in the that term SOP before, but
Yeah.
I've always documented things that I've done
Yep.
to make sure that I know exactly what to do next.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so important, and so many people don't do that.
So,
Yeah. I think it's also hard too when you're always on the go. But at the same time, it's always good to slow down and really identify what you're doing, recurringly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to slow down, and I think, just blocking off a chunk of time, either at the end of the day or at the end of the week, to sit there and really look at what's happened over the week and being able to evaluate that.
Yep.
That's one of the other big missteps people have.
You can itemize the minutes, right?
Right, I see. Especially when you start itemizing not every minute, but the minutes it takes you to do one specific task.
Yeah, you don't need to really get that. It depends again on the business. So sometimes that's too manini,
Right.
and you get into it. But, I have clients, they sell food products, but they can't tell me what's their number one seller.
I see.
They're too busy in the weeds selling and doing this. And then I had one lady, she just started her company and she's making products. And she goes, well, I keep making new products. I'm like, why are you making new products? You need to focus on the ones you have to make sure they're good and make sure people buy those before you
There you
start
go.
making all these other products.
Right.
Because you'll drive yourself crazy.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because, in other words of, I guess, like my techie side of me just came out of there, and it's kind of looking into the analytics of your business because, like, you need to know the ins and outs, how long it takes to do
Yep.
something, how much it costs, how much it costs per unit, and also how much you're selling it
Customer
for.
acquisition. and all
So
that.
it's all of these things that you have to know as a business owner to be successful in some way. Because if you don't, then you're kind of in the weeds, like you're mentioning.
Yeah, exactly. Like I had one client and I asked her, well, how many cases of your product do you sell a month? She goes, I don't know. You have to ask my accountant. Wrong answer. Wrong answer.
That's delegation,
Yeah.
right? Delegation
Yeah.
station. I sometimes, and I did that for 2 years, right? When I had my what is it called? The tax professional person that does the taxes.
Your CPA.
My CPA, I have my CPA just doing everything for me. And I was like, I'm not worried about that. I'm just sending them receipts. And I'm like, I never even added anything up to make sure they were doing it right or anything. But now I am because I refuse to put myself in that position again.
Yeah.
If you're going to say that you're a business owner, you better be in charge of the business operations, and you can't just say, "Oh, this guy's fault or it's that guy's fault." Then you're not. You're a worker. You're a worker for your business. You know what I mean?
And it's so important to, like, even if you're not the person that's heavily looking at the charts or, like, say, understanding the analytics, looking at the overall view when someone gives you a report, say if you have someone doing it for you, that's what it really takes for a company to succeed. That's why we have companies to begin with that have that many employees.
Yeah, that's why you have the CEO and the CFO and the COO.
CPO
Right.
and that shit.
CTO, yeah. You have all those people because they are responsible for those reports, and then you all get together
Yep.
and discuss what's in the reports.
100%.
So that's really important.
So for all those people out there that's trying to do it all on your own, just know it won't be that easy. Not saying it's impossible.
Well, yeah, so when you start out, I have to say, you do it all.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're a
100%.
sole proprietor or a single member LLC. But eventually you'll get to the point where you add other people to your team. So I had one friend, he was really funny because he worked for a video company.
Okay.
So he decided to go out on his own and do local video ads for companies.
Okay.
And about 3 months later, he comes to me and goes, "Oh, Robbie, I can't believe it. I'm working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day." And I looked at him, I'm like, "Oh, you're now really an entrepreneur."
Yeah.
Because that's what
Yeah.
it takes. If you think you're just going to work 9 to 5 doing your company, wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And honestly, I would add on top of that too. My previous job, I worked like 60-hour weeks, and I enjoyed it. But at the same time, you know, when I started the business, I'm working every day. But I think this type of gratitude that I have of being able to not only do what I want, but focus on something that I actually feel like is deserving for me is a blessing, because you don't see this right away until like you're saying like when you're working every single day
Right.
for it.
Yeah, so the interesting thing in Women in Buy, when you said, are there any failures? You know, we struggled so much financially to keep the organization going. And me working, you know, getting 3 hours of sleep for 7 years, it got to the point where I just wanted to give up. I just was like, is this ever going to get any better? And so Malcolm Gladwell spoke at some event I was at, and he wrote a book on the dip. And he goes, you have to decide, are you in a dip or are you at a brick wall? Because a brick wall is, no matter what you do, it's never going to get any better.
Right.
Huh.
And I sat there and like, oh crap, I'm in a dip. I can't give up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so then I just like, all right. So those are sort of the things you have to think about, though.
Okay.
Right.
It's those deciding points in your organization.
Yeah, and how do you even get around it without having to, you know, at least for me, I've felt there's times where I want to be at, say, a certain position, but I know that there's so many steps that needs to get through those hurdles, especially as a sole proprietor right now. But it must be so hard and so different when you start having employees.
Yeah, so I think the important thing is coming to the Small Business Development Center. So I have some companies, they have lots of employees. They're pretty much, but they check in with me once a month. We just sit and talk for an hour, what's going on, what's happening. And then I just, you know, provide some insights, and they tell me their struggles. And when you can talk to somebody like I'm talking to the two of you, just being around somebody else to talk through things helps sort of open the doors and opens your mind.
Yeah. No,
to
100%.
it.
Different perspectives from
Yeah.
different people, from different walks of life, from different levels of things. That's the same thing you were talking about earlier, was the mentorship.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that, because business was not my first forte of trying to do something. I'm originally an engineer, and I didn't really get into business because of me. It was because of the people that I've surrounded myself with, and my friends back at home. They run their own businesses, successful in their own ways, and I've seen them grow. And I've also seen, when I started my business, that I was able to rely on them for, you know,
Insight.
having my back, and also say the struggles that you deal internally. It's for someone that say, if you didn't have that background, it has to be really hard to even get to a point where you feel like you're doing the right thing.
Well, most entrepreneurs, so it's funny when people come to me, they apologize that they never took any business classes. And I'm like, very few entrepreneurs ever went to business school. Very few. So just, you know, get over that. But
But with the day and age of technology, YouTube University, you can learn a lot of stuff
Oh, yeah,
on
you
the
can.
online.
you can learn, but the problem is people get the wrong information.
That's what we talked about on our first episode, the fake gurus that are on these social media
That's-
platforms.
Oh my gosh, so many people come to me and, well, I heard this on the internet, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah.
yeah.
And I'm like, that's totally wrong.
Yeah. You have to
just,
qualify
like,
the information.
Yeah, you have to qualify. Yeah, and then people who pay people to register their business online when it takes 5 minutes and it's free.
She's
That's
talking to me
the
right now,
other
guys.
thing. No, you and other people.
No,
And
I
I'm
know,
like,
I
no.
know. I know.
Well, I think it's more or less just like, it's sacrificing the no versus convenience
Yeah.
when it comes to things. Because I know that my generation, we're kind of stuck in this sort of like social bubble of like we're always on our phones. And like I think it also has to deal with technology as growing up. And you're right. Like, you see these sponsored ads from people saying like, "I made X money," and like you can too. It's just
Click
those
here.
people
Yeah.
are kind of, I wouldn't say ruining, but I would say misleading the people that actually want to start a business.
Yeah, so I actually called the IRS. Because there's also for the federal employee identification number. So if you just Google that, it doesn't take you directly into the IRS. There are all these people. Oh, we have permission from the IRS to register and set this up for you, of course, for a fee. And it's free if you
It's
go
free.
on the IRS,
It is
and it
free.
takes you 2 minutes,
Yeah.
if that,
get the
to do
EIN.
that for the
Yeah.
EIN. So I emailed the IRS and I said, these people are misleading the community and they're charging for something you do for free. The next time I did it, those things were gone.
Mm.
So I'm glad I did that.
Yeah,
because I
that's-
was just like,
It's true, and like he was talking about before, it is a generation of convenience, right? It's nobody. Not I'm not gonna say nobody. It's a lot of people out there who don't want to put the work in, on the groundwork.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
like tilling the ground to plant the seed, to then water it, to then water it, to then water it. It's like, oh, if it's done for me, then some guy's gonna do it for me, but I just gotta pay a couple $100. And that I fell into that trap as well, because I'm like, you know what, I'm so busy, I got this and I got that. Let me just pay this person to take care of all of that. And that's why I fell in trouble with IRS, because of my CPA. And so sometimes convenience is not.
convenience is so, case in point, AI is now emerging, right?
All right, that too.
So somebody sent me a business plan.
Welcome to the dark side.
And I'm reading it, and I'm like, she didn't write this. This is AI generated, because it was too generic.
Yeah. And you can tell too,
can
because
tell.
I've used AI before, and I use it actually for parts of my business.
Yeah.
But you could see the language within how they write things. It's not how someone would speak,
Oh, yeah.
True.
But you should use it for information.
Right.
But not to use it yourselves to like, yeah. So I use it in my business when I'm learning about an industry. So sometimes if it's something I'm not familiar with, I'll just ask.
There's also
Okay.
AI out there to then make sure that what you're reading isn't created by AI.
Yeah.
So it's AI checkers,
That
and
too.
fact
Yeah.
checkers to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's crazy because my field for digital marketing and web design, you see how we're kind of evolving with AI as well. It's like, I don't know if you guys seen Google giving you these suggested answers. That's all this search generative engine that goes with Google. But you can't really rely 100% on it because, with all the information that's going out there, especially with people creating sites that have misleading information, if that gets to the public and that ends up becoming popular, that ends up becoming a fact for people
That's
to see.
propaganda 101 right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, exactly. So, for people who have been in the business a long time, they know when things are false. That's the other thing. Like, they were doing something the other day on the news about music. But if you know somebody's voice well enough, like I'm looking at Barry Gibb over there, and I'm like, if you know the voice, you can tell if you had the right ear for that. So for when we were in investment, you knew when somebody was pulling your leg. You knew exactly because you've just seen it so much, what it should look like.
That makes sense. That makes
Right.
sense. Well, yeah. I mean, I appreciate you. That was everything we could ask for in the first episode.
That was a really, really great, I guess, information that you gave us for today.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Robbie, for joining us.
It was so great to be here. Always, two of my favorite people, of course.
I appreciate
So
that.
really fun to sit down and chat with you.
Yeah, we
Awesome.
can't wait for this to get to the public.
Yeah, so you have to let me know when it's ready.
Of
Yeah,
course,
and then
we
bring
will.
your friends. Tell your friends to come on and hop
Yeah.
on. And Anybody in any field, and any entrepreneur or non-entrepreneur.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you
know of
again.
a few that would be good.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
That's
Send 'em my
awesome,
way.
man. Let's do it. And just going to close this off. You guys are listening to Talking Growth with Emil, and
Rah.
we are with Robbie. And I am happy that we got to interview her today. Thank you guys for listening.
Take it easy.
You go by Raw?
That's my entertainment name.